gentlemen. So today I have the challenge after lunch. Actually, somebody told me if you have a problem falling asleep, you just listen to logistics. It actually is very useful. So my topic is Chinese logistics industry and policies. So I will be talking about logistics from industry perspective. This is some quick lesson, quick knowledge about logistics. So some of you here may have already known about it. By Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, this is a formal definition, and this is also a definition that is widely accepted throughout the world. You all know that logistics is something about movement of cargo, transportation. But logistics is not just transportation, it's more than transportation. And also, especially recent years, this term has evolved into supply chain management. So logistics now is regarded as part of the supply chain process that plans, implements, and controls the efficient, effective forward and reverse flow and storage of goods, services, and related information. So here, not only forward flow and storage, but also reverse flow and storage. That actually brings a whole new era of reverse logistics and green logistics and sustainability. And actually, not far ago, that the European Union was about to introduce this carbon emission tax into their charge to the airlines, which actually was received many objections, and in the end, they decided to give it up, at least presently. But this also tells us what is the future trend. And also some of the environmental activists have already started to have this, their influence on business, like some of the countries may have this requirement that on the package of the product, of consumer product, you have to also show how many kilometers this product has already traveled before they reach the shelf. And also now governments, even in China, as a developing country, our government are starting to track carbon emission of the product throughout the whole supply chain process. Companies have to be responsible for their own emission, and also consumers. They have the right to decide whether I want to buy a local product or I want to buy a product that travels 10,000 miles away from another country, and this, I mean, exactly the same product. Whether it is, it makes sense that I want to have this product that is also available locally. So this environmental concern actually, even though it is still not very mainstream, but it is starting to have impact on business. So forward and reverse flow and storage of goods, services, and related information. Especially in this 21st century and the third tide of industrialization, and we see that the digital trade has been increasing. Flow of information, flow of data. In some of the industries, it's purely flow of data. And in other traditional industries, used to be flow of paper, now also has become flow of data, like the banking industry. Not many people now still have they're still using bank notes or currency notes. Instead, you have your card, right, bank card, and then the transition, this becomes just a movement of data, storage and movement of data. So between the point of origin and the point of consumption, in order to meet customers' requirements. This new change, this sustainability change, this movement of data really gives logistics a whole new face. It's not just a traditional, very long working hours, dirty, heavy cargo, loading, unloading, storage, and movement. Rather, it has got a lot of new forms, and also the impact has been across the whole supply chain process. So this, in this slide, you can see the evolutionary timeline of logistics after World War II. Logistics, this term comes from a French term, logis, military supply. So in Napoleon's time, he had already had education of logistics, of course, to mainly develop talents for dealing with military supply. And the term logistics started to be used in World War II, and container transportation today, actually, the first use of a container was in World War II, was during the wartime. So after the wartime, of course, like many military technologies have been adopted to business, civil business. Of course, you know, if you look at business competition, you can say this is a war, this is a battle. So when companies are fighting against each other in the marketplace, who are your soldiers? Who are your bullets? Who are your weapons? Of course, you can say mainly, you know, our products. If consumers come to the shop and wanting to buy something and find the shelf empty, or if your competitor's product can arrive at the marketplace before your product, you have already failed. You have already failed. So these logistics techniques and management like principles have been adopted to business. The first stage of application, of course, was in outbound flow of finished products into the marketplace. And at that stage, logistics was called physical distribution. So 1960s, 1950s, 60s. And then in the 1970s, it evolved into integrated logistics that also encompass procurement, purchasing, so supply of inbound flow. And from mid-1980s up to now, this is the whole supply chain era. Actually, especially in globalization period, if you look at any product, almost any product, you cannot say that this product is produced only by one producer in one country, in one region. No. So if you look at a product like iPhone or like a Boeing aeroplane, actually the parts come from all various different suppliers in all various different countries. And how do you make sure that all the parts would arrive all at the same time so that the product can be assembled? And what if there's a quality problem? How do you manage your inventory? So actually, when this tragedy happened in New York, 9/11 happened, there was a very big disaster, business disaster that happened in Australia, which was the bankruptcy of its biggest airline. So when people holding their tickets trying to fly on the morning and they arrive at the airport, were told that the airline went bankrupt and set. So the reason of the bankruptcy, of course, there are also other reasons, but one of the business reasons was because of inventory problem and because of lack of standardization in procurement of their aeroplanes. They buy aeroplanes from all different suppliers with all different specifications, and this means they will have to hold all various different types of spare parts for maintenance and repairs. And this is aeroplane, very expensive. So actually, because of this, they ran out of working capital, and the airline had to go bankrupt. It's not just a movement of cargo, but also how do you manage your supplier? How do you coordinate with your supplier, and how do you plan for the whole process, and also coordinate your relationship with your distributor, even the final consumer, So in this field, I would like to give you an example of Toyota company. You know that Toyota is it has this Toyota model, right? So zero inventory. Zero inventory means also they have zero inventory of finished cars. But when they are dealing with dealers, the dealer, of course, they have their own business goals. If there's a model that turns out to be quite popular, of course, every dealer wants to avoid stock out in their own shops. So they tend to overorder. And they tend to create stories telling Toyota, we have sold out all our inventory and we need another shipment. But the reality is they may still have inventory in their warehouse. What Toyota is doing is he would request all the distributors to provide contact information of each of the consumers. So Toyota company could call them and make sure that this car has already been sold out. Why Toyota is doing this? Because if in the end, the dealer would not be able to sell out all these cars, they will have inventory problem, their money will be tied up, so they won't have enough money if Toyota introduce another new model. And also, if they are faced with this inventory problem, they start to give discount to help to sell out this inventory. But when they provide a discount, and this may make the newer model less attractive, because consumer would say, that's last year's model and not much difference, but with this year's model, but it's just 1 year old, but I pay like 5,000 less. Why should I buy this year's model? And if that happens for Toyota company, this means this year model, the new model, wouldn't be able to sold out. So as a car manufacturer, not only they're managing their distributors, but also they are talking directly to the final consumers. And this is something about the supply chain. You are going beyond your first tier supplier or customer. You are going beyond that, and you are even trying to reach the final consumer. Of course, in this supply chain era, you see, after this, we are still now in this period, but there have been lots of new concepts and practices, like the concept of postponement. You postpone a creation of the final form of the product until customer have already paid for it. Like in the painting industry. You don't want to blend all different colors and store them in the warehouse, waiting for consumers to come to buy and buy. Instead, you would just have the basic colors, and consumers would come and they would pay, and then you say, what kind of color do you want? Then you start to mix all the colors and say, okay, this is the color. I start to produce for you. And also like trousers. Many times you go to the shop where you buy trousers, all the trousers, they are the same length. You pay first, and then you go. We have a tailor over there. He will measure you and the length of your legs, and then try to finalize the product for you. So this is postponement of the creation of the final product, and also to postpone the delivery of the final product to the marketplace. So that companies now, instead of having many field warehouses, now they're having regional distribution centers. So they would wait to make shipment until there has already been a customer order, to avoid relocation of products, to avoid unnecessary handling, loading, unloading, unnecessary time and cost. And the bullwhip effect and green supply chain, and also supply chain sustainability. So recently, several scholars, they have been working in one team, and they have been serving their MBA and EMBA students, who are all logistics supply chain managers. And these managers, they were asked to list out the top 3 challenges in area of logistics and supply chain in the next 10 years. These are the people that are that are working in the field. And these are the top 3 challenges as identified by the managers. So first one is sustainability and corporate social responsibility. So like I mentioned, it's not just a voluntary behavior of the business, but government are now having request. They would exempt the tax on it, and they would request the companies to use sustainable materials, to use sustainable energy. So next generation of cars would be totally different from the current cars. And when this becomes government regulation, you have to really, comply to it. Risk management in global logistics. Of course, here risk can be quality risk, can be payment risk, can be time risk, it can be lots of risks. So how do you manage your logistics or supply chain risk when you are operating in a global a sphere? So how do you make sure that your suppliers from all various different countries would be able to make delivery to you on time, with the right quantity and also with the right quality? So like another example, Nokia have their production in several countries. Of course, they also have a very big factory in China. Of course, Nokia is not doing well now because of Apple and Samsung. But actually, their lead time for like US market is only 7 days. which means if a distributor would place an order with Nokia company, within 7 days, they will receive the shipment. And this means within 7 days, a final assembly would take place, and also packaging and shipment, everything. Of course, the shipment is by airplane. But still, this is a very, very short time frame, within 7 days lead time. And also emerging markets. So in the previous presentations, people have mentioned about new markets like South American, Central America, and South America and African countries, and even some of the Southern Asia countries. So how do you, make use of market opportunities in these emerging markets? And also, these emerging markets may impact on the investment behavior of the businesses. Like many, even Chinese businesses, they are starting to invest in Vietnam, in India. They are relocating the manufacturing production of textile products to India, to Vietnam, to Myanmar, to Bangladesh. And when this investment would change within this, to cope with this change, this means you have to find new suppliers, local suppliers, and also you have to work with that government and deal with that infrastructure, and also the whole time would change, and whether that will impact on your inventory, whether there will be impact on your quality and all your lead times. So how you're going to manage this? These emerging markets really they are having lots of impact on businesses. Logistics in China, this term actually was, we actually learned, was imported from Japan, 物流. 物流 in logistics in Chinese is called 物流. In Japanese is called 物的流动. So we would cut it short to call it 物流. 物 means product, 流 means flow, so flow of products. Modern logistics industry, this is in comparison with traditional warehousing transportation. It started from late 1990s. Actually, because of opening up reform, and because our economic growth was mainly based on export-oriented production. And China actually, of course, become a world manufacturing plant. And logistics demand is derived demand. Why do we need logistics? Because there is a trading deal, because you need to make delivery. So when economy would grow, when there are more active trading going on, of course there will be more demand for logistics. Because of this rapid growth in the economy and in trade area, of course, logistics industry in China also experienced a very rapid growth, Actually, I did a joint research with my Australian colleague. We actually interviewed on the major skills that are required for logistics managers in China. And of course, we identified 50 skills that are required for logistics managers starting from procurement all the way to distribution. Very interestingly, we found out that the skills that are mostly needed, mostly ranked by Chinese logistics managers, are the skills that are mainly needed for procurement and production process. Why? Because China still is not the major world market yet, even though there's a huge potential. So if you look at the economic behavior in our economy, it's mainly importing of raw materials, producing of cargo, and then you would put it onto the container and onto the ship, and it will go out to the Western market, European market and USA market. So products will be mainly distributed there, outside of China. So inside China, the skills required are mainly supplier management, inventory management, and operations planning and scheduling. Is all this inbound and internal part of logistics. In 2007, the nation's total social logistics value, of course, this is transactional value as collected. In our GDP, we still don't have specific statistics for logistics yet. Social logistics value, these are logistics expenditures of various different types of businesses, and also revenues of the 3PL companies, reached 74.8 trillion renminbi, which actually was a 25.5% of increase over 2006. Of course, mainly boosted by production and export. Now import is starting to grow, so we are also noticing now more and more our graduates are finding jobs in multinational companies in the purchasing department. So China is starting to import more also from the rest of the world. This figure shows China's freight traffic. So you can see that there has been a very steady and certain increase of traffic over the years. And if we look at logistics breakdown by types of transportation, total tonnage times kilometer, the distance, of course, road transportation has the highest growth rate, and then it was water, and then rail. For air, there's no data for total turnover of tons and times kilometers, but if you look at the traffic by just the tons, billion tons, aeroplane actually has the highest growth rate. Of course, this is mainly for high value goods and for long distance movement. So mainly high value of goods, luxurious products. Of course, this is mainly international movement of cargo. This Mercer research company, they conducted this research based on interviews. They interviewed 48 manufacturers and 19 3PLs in China about their experience and their attitudes and their in this field of logistics. Multinational companies, the top three logistics costs. First one is transportation warehousing, so that's still the major logistics cost, and administrative cost, and then third one is inventory cost. For Chinese companies, actually the sequence is the same. Of course, for Chinese companies, this cost is actually lower, but I don't know why, but maybe because these multinational companies, they are operating their global supply chain, so that can be the reason. Or there can be some statistical error. Understanding of the modern logistics by people, but still a lot of people think logistics is just the transportation and warehousing. Only specialists would say, okay, logistics, yeah, it's part of the supply chain process. Logistics, human resource, we are, in actually a big shortage of well-trained logistics professions. So by 2010, market demand for logistics professionals with education of diploma or above. Because if you look at logistics field, lots of people working in the field, they started as drivers, as a warehouse staff. So the people with proper education is still not enough. So the total market demand is between 300,000 to 400,000. People working in the industry that need training is more than 1 million. So that actually gives a lot of opportunity for education and training. Logistics have been listed as among the 12 professionals that are in high shortage in China. Not only China, actually even in Hong Kong and even in Singapore, as international port city. They are having shortage of logistics professionals. In Shanghai itself, there has been a shortage of logistics professions as large as 500,000. What are the shippers' key logistics challenges? So if we look at it by industry, the key challenges for the automotive industry is mainly how to reduce inventory levels. And for apparel and textile inventory, apparel and textile industry, how to shorten your cycle time. Because fashion, because you need to have cycle time to get the materials ready, clothes and accessories, everything ready, and production and shipment and everything. But textile and apparel, lots of products are fashion products. and the fashion changes all the time. So according to statistics in the United States, every year the loss in end of season sales totaled the annual working capital of the apparel company, apparel industry. So that's a very, very big challenge for the industry, how to shorten the cycle time. Actually, because as part of the reason, now some of the apparel and textile companies, they are now bringing back the production from China back to Europe, back to United States, just to shorten the lead time to deal with this cycle time problem and the inventory issue. In consumer electronics and food and beverage, how to lower logistics cost because of damage rate, because of course in food and beverage, not only damage, but also time concern, and also for beverage, whether how you are going to move your beer, for example, in bottles or in tanker, right? And also, if we look at general for shippers, what are the key logistics challenges? How to reduce logistics costs still is top challenge, how to reduce costs. Second challenge is how to shorten your cycle time. Of course, there are many, many management skills that companies can use. And also now more and more companies, they are trying to seek help from specialized companies, which are 3PLs companies, which are 4PL companies, supply chain consulting companies, and how to improve service level to the customers. And within this, actually, there's one criteria is about how to avoid stock out, and how to improve your post-sales, how to deal with product returns, and reduce inventory level and enhance reliability, on-time delivery. So if we look at the Chinese logistics industry, actually between 49 and 79, there's planned economy. Manufacturers actually their material supply and the sales of their products were very strictly controlled by state-owned distributors, wholesalers. So manufacturers don't have the right to buy to source their own materials. Also, they didn't have the right to sell and distribute their own products. So that's mainly monopolized by state-owned wholesalers. Of course, these wholesalers, they became the major logistics service providers. And from 79, of course, when the economic reform started, manufacturers were given more freedom in buying their raw materials, in selling their own products. So some of the transport and warehousing companies, they started to provide service directly to the manufacturers. And also manufacturers and retailers, they also started to build their own warehouse and fleets. And also government started experiment of logistics parks. So the two cities that government started to have this experiment was Shenzhen. That's a port city in Guangdong province next to Hong Kong, and Shanghai. So from mid-1990s, that's the starting of, I said, modern logistics in China. So these multinationals, when they come to China, they also bring with them their logistics service providers. Of course, these companies, when they come to China, the government requirement was they have to set up joint venture with a Chinese company. So like FedEx, like UPS, like many other logistics companies, when they came into China at the first time, they actually started to have joint ventures with Chinese companies. And of course, this also brings in modern logistics management ideas and theories and practices. And also, Chinese private logistics companies also started to grow. And because of the increased number of specialized logistics companies in the marketplace, manufacturers also start to outsource their logistics requirements. So that actually helped to stimulate the development of modern logistics industry. To have an industry, you must have a good number of logistics companies. If we look at the structure of the industry, of course, first these are the governors. Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Railway and Communication, these have now been combined as Ministry of Transportation. So now you have one ministry managing, supervising rail, water, and road transportation. And the Civil Aviation Administration, Customs General Administration, State Administration of Taxation, Ministry of Public Security, and State Administration for Industry and Commerce. Like, of course, why there's security issue? Because like if you are dealing with chemical products, these are dangerous or hazardous goods. So just by looking at governors of this industry, you see, in China, we will say you have many, many mother-in-laws. One mother-in-law is already a big headache, let alone you have so many. Sometimes these mother-in-laws will fight against each other. So which one should you listen to? This actually means cost. And also lots of red tapes, and companies in it, of course, in the industry, mainly you have 3PL companies, but also you have in-house logistics division in the manufacturing or merchant companies. Some manufacturers like Haier also want to develop its own competency in logistics field. So Haier actually set up a specialized logistics division. This division not only provide service to the Haier other divisions, but also they provide services to other electronic companies, their competitors. So it's in-house, but they are now running their business like it's a real business, in a market way. And logistics, education, research organization, equipment and facility companies like these Prologis, very big, world maybe largest developer. Logistics information service and consulting and real estate investors. These are the major players in the Chinese 3PL market. So you see there are foreign companies, they are traditional Chinese state-owned companies, there are internal logistics departments, there are also emerging private companies. These are the private companies. So lots of players. Why there are so many players? Because everybody says this is a huge cake. Market size is very big. But because of because there are so many companies, because government didn't put a very strict entry-level requirement. So even according to the statistics of State Council Research and Development Center, even the largest company, logistics company in China, its market share is less than 2%. So there's a lack of scale economy in operation. Because of this, of course, there's lack of efficiency. So if you look at logistics costs in the total product cost, in the total landed cost of the product, in advanced countries, it's less than 10%. But in China, it's 20%, even more. It's 20% even more. In some of the industries, even this is even higher. So like in chemical industry, time, the production is only 10% of the total time of the product cycle. 90% of the time has been used in logistics process. So how to manage the time and cost? Of course, time also means money. And because there are so many governors, so many mother-in-laws, so they also made many policies. So these are the current policies that are relevant to logistics operation. Of course, some of them are transport related, some of them are distribution and business related. Some are, of course, because they are also import-export. So also tax, customers also is involved. Sometimes the customers or the inspection and quarantine departments, they can cause big headaches in international movement of cargo. And this may mean that your product will have to be put in the warehouse for a check for another 3 months. Or this may mean that your product will be rejected. Like if you make a delivery of this computer to China, together with all these accessories, and if by chance you have put the wrong plug, you have put the plug, creation plug into the package, when they would have random inspection, they find out this is not the right specification for Chinese market, they will reject the product. This means you have to send the product all the way back to Croatia. And this means you will not be able to make delivery to your customer on time, and also this means you have to pay for double transportation. Of course, government is trying to improve policies, introduce new policies and new management mechanisms so that things can be better coordinated, so that these different mother-in-laws, when they fight against each other, they will have less impact on the customers, on the consumers. Many people were complaining about the poor service of China Rail. Of course, it's a government monopoly. Their service is not good, but also they have their own restrictions, because one of the executive officer actually said people complain that railway companies are not providing door-to-door delivery service. He said, actually, you don't know. Within the railway station, it belongs to railway ministry, but if you step out of the railway station, it becomes local government. So different mother-in-laws. To better coordinate the thing, government 9 ministries jointly announced this new recommendation, of course, for improving the policy in 2004, and also in 2005, government decided to form this ministerial associate meeting system. It's like a round table management system for logistics industry, because there are so many different ministries that need to sit down together and need to be coordinated. This round table is the mechanism that is used by many countries, even advanced countries. It's difficult to have one single ministry saying this is logistics ministry. So logistics has said to be one of the 10 strategic industries that need to be greatly developed in China. So China is still developing our infrastructure. So you see lots of construction of railway, of highway, of airports, seaports. So government is still trying a lot of means to improve transportation. In China, we have a saying, if you want to be rich, build your road first. Construct your street, your road first. Last summer, I received a group of students from Croatia. Some of them actually are logistics major students. They also said to me that Croatian government is also trying to improve logistics infrastructure so that it will also be one of the transit port for Europe, for Europe. And also, I believe yesterday, also in one of the speech, also it was mentioned that the port is discussing with Costco. That's almost the largest state-owned logistics company in China, a shipping line logistics company in China. Municipal policies. The Shanghai municipal government actually, when it was drafting the 5-year plan, we have every 5 years there's a plan. The 10th 5-year plan, 2000 to 2005. So that's first of the kind in China. Government decided to have a specialized logistics plan. So logistics being one of the 4 strategic industries in Shanghai. And the 3 areas of logistics development. One is port logistics, airport, and deep sea port. Distribution logistics and e-commerce. E-commerce certainly growing. It's growing very, very rapidly. And 3 logistics parks or logistics spatial zones. Now, of course, government is developing more. Like Weigouqiao is also Pudong Airport, and now, of course, with the development of the new seaport. Now, government actually for logistics companies registered in this new seaport area, within 5 years, they are tax-free. Government is still trying a lot of means to encourage development of 3PLs in China and to encourage them to improve their services. So these are the major ports in China that have been listed among the world top 50 container ports. And Shanghai port in 2005, in terms of total tonnage, actually surpassed Singapore for the first time. That's including container cargo and non-containerized, like bulk cargo. But in year 2010, even in container transportation. That figure actually is total, but Singapore was still world #1 port in terms of TEU turnover, container turnover. But in 2010, even in terms of 20 equivalent units, the container turnover, Shanghai port has become world number one. Of course, next to it was Singapore, and then you see Hong Kong, that's China. Shenzhen, that's China. Busan, that's South Korea. Ningbo, that's also China. Guangzhou, also that's China. Qingdao, also China. Dubai, of course, and then Rotterdam. So the flow of cargo also would show, what is the flow of economy, flow of investment. This Yangsan deep sea port actually is a 20-year, $15.5 billion project. This port actually is built on 2 islands in the ocean because of sand descendants. So the water near the Shanghai harbor wasn't deep enough. So government decided to build this a huge project. The purpose, of course, is to make Shanghai international hub for Northern Asia Pacific region. So the first stage was completed in 2005. That's in total 5 container berths, and it was connected with the land by a sea bridge, 32.2 kilometers of long of sea bridge. So this port, but because it's located in the ocean, not right in the center of the ocean, but already in the sea. So every year there's about 1 month's time that the port has to be closed because of typhoon, because of bad weather. So WTO commitment, of course, logistics, transportation is also one field that our government made commitments to open up for foreign investment. So after 5 years of transition period from 2005, these areas have been opened to overseas investors. And in this table, you can see in more details the timeline of market openness. Of course, yesterday I've already mentioned about this CEPA, and also this morning somebody was asking, I think, about Hong Kong, Hong Kong, Macau. Actually, if you look at this table, you will see that because of special arrangement between mainland and Hong Kong and Macau, actually the market open, the time of market openness has been before the openness of the whole mainland area. So many companies actually, they decided to set up the regional distribution centers in Hong Kong, or to set up a company in Hong Kong. So yeah, I think, Mr. Blackburn also mentioned about this. So as a stepping stone into mainland. So again, this is a survey that I mentioned just now, based on interviews. So shippers' view of foreign and Chinese 3PL providers, advantages of foreign providers, IT, capability, industrial experience, standardized operation, international network, financial position, logistic talent, and advantages of Chinese providers, lower price, local knowledge, domestic network coverage, relationship with the central and local government, ownership of some strategic assets, because still market is not totally open for foreign investment in some of the areas, and a flexible operation. So challenges for 3PLs to further grow. Very interesting. Just now, when you look at these competitive advantages, they're different between multinational and local domestic 3PLs. But if you look at challenges, they are somewhat similar. So challenges for Chinese providers are finding qualified people, regulatory issues, government restrictions, and then IT and client rigidity. And challenges for foreign providers, government restriction. And this also has been one of the major restrictions for Chinese companies. Finding qualified people, human resource problem, and regulatory issues. So this top 10, they are very similar. The ranking is slightly different, but these are the common restrictions. Of course, logistics industry also has been impacted by the financial crisis. And you see this very, very obvious and sharp drop in the last quarter of 2008 because of cancellation of orders. So because of dropping of export. So also has been impacted a lot, especially sharp drop of port cargo turnover. And of course, this crisis in Chinese, we say 危机 crisis, 危机. 危 means risk, G means opportunity. So in any crisis, there are also opportunities. So these also create new development opportunities. Like I mentioned, import is increasing. And China is growing to be a very big market. Not only domestic market, but also a big market for multinational companies. But of course, this will have new requirement, and for businesses and a new requirement for human resource. So in conclusion, Chinese logistics industry still has great potential. The growth rate, even though has been impacted, still would enjoy a very, very high growth rate. So that's why government still decided to make it one of the 10 strategic industries that need to be further developed. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to say, to add something to your conclusion, that Croatian logistic industry has great potential too. I do hope that we shall develop jointly with the Chinese logistic industry, as you mentioned before and yesterday by our minister, Mr. Hajdaš Dončić. There are ongoing negotiations between Port of Rijeka and COSCO company. Next week, on the middle of next week, delegation from Port of Rijeka is visiting COSCO in China, and they will continue. Hopefully they will find, make good results, I mean, that conclude something which will realize that combination joint venture between Croatian logistic industry and Chinese. We also have some other ports in Croatia. Another one very big is Port of Ploče, which are in big process of reconstruction and development. They are already in touch with the provider of equipment from China regarding the new crans and such kind of things. And that port is on the beginning of the one very important transport corridor, C5, which is European corridor. It is one additional reason why there are possibility to cooperate in that port too. And there are some other ports, but anyhow, logistic industry is definitely of interest for us, like for the China.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Is there any question, maybe? At the moment, we can be satisfied with the cooperation. For logistics, solve the logistic problems, because you mentioned that you have some foreign logistic companies like DHL, FedEx, UPS. They're also in Croatia, and Schenker. Schenker is covering very well. It is not only one, but it is the best for the Far East, including the China. And as I mentioned, we are expecting COSCO, hopefully.
I have a small question. Do you have any examples of Chinese logistical industry investing in ports in Europe or similar
Actually,
other parts of the world?
I think China Shipping, that's also a state-owned enterprise. They are investing very heavily in Greece.
In Greece.
Yeah, Greece.
And other parts of the world except
Port of Pirée, I think.
Well, actually, as I said, if you want to be rich, first you should build your road. This is principle actually, applies to all various different fields. I mean, so I think, with further development of economy and investment, there will be more movement of cargo, more movement of people. So transportation is always very, very important pillar of economic growth. Of course, the purpose of doing this, of course, is to try to promote China-European Union trade. But also at the same time, I think these logistics companies also, they want to become multinational companies like Maersk. Also, they want to have their ports, their own hubs, all over the world.
And do you know anything about the agreement, or trying to reach an agreement to set up a rail transportation from China to Europe through Russia? Because at this moment now they are using, of course, the sea is the best one, but
yeah, recently actually there has been the land bridge the use of land bridge has been increasing because rail transportation is faster than ocean transportation, and also is less vulnerable to bad weather. And also, if you want to go by shipping, you have to go around the land. but with land bridge, the distance is shorter. And also with the, like new emerging market. These former Soviet Union countries, former Yugoslavia countries, and like newly emerging Asian economies, even like Turkey. So this, with the development of these countries and the bilateral trade between these countries, so lots of cargo actually can be delivered via land. You don't have to go around the ocean. So that actually creates a lot of demand for rail transportation. Of course, that gives the reason for government investment into the infrastructure.
Thank you. Izvolite, ima li pitanja možda? If there is no more question, I would like to thank you.